Hey everyone, welcome back to another video in the Master Data Management series. Today I'm going to be creating files for each of these databases, 8 files for each of them, but more importantly I will be creating a procedure that will add our files in case we need more in the future. Same way I did in the last video, with I guess as minimal amount of typing as possible. And this is because all of our data, like the subjects of our data, our reference data, and our people data, they're going to live on different files because we're adapting a normalization approach for the entire system. So just like we normalize tables, where we only put columns in a table where the value relates to the key itself, we're going to do that with data. We're going to make sure that the type of data stored is the storage is normalized, basically. So you can follow along if you'd like, or just watch, either or. I'm just going to get started here, start developing, so you can see how I do it. And I'll just give some comments as I'm typing. So I'm just going to script one of my databases as create and copy the primary piece, because I don't want to do a lot of typing unless it's formatting so it's readable. But we've already declared our size and growth. So we're just going to tokenize this script, because this will be our template for creating files. Input main with database name, database type name, database type name. Looks good. And now our files, we're going to begin with fs, and for the normalization process we're going to actually add 2 more tokens: the subject name, like reference data or people data, and the file type name, which is going to be the different slices of data. Fs, like cluster data or index data. Yeah, I'll talk about that in a moment. And for every file space we need, just copy this, we need a file group. With essentially the same name. But instead of fs, I'm going to do fg, file group. Just copy this, say to file group. So that's basically it for our script piece. Now we're just going to create variables for our tokens. That was a database name, database type name, subject name, and file type name. Except since I want every database type to have the same files as the root database subject. Like if I had a file to interface main, I want it to be on interface main, history, archive, and snapshot because they're all a shape. It's a little shape related to each other. And oops, I did that backwards. The incoming parameters will be the database and the subject that I want to store. And these are going to be internal to the procedure. And now I just need those executable parameters. For the create with the base that's going to hold our tokenized code, and the execute that is going to be ran. And I'll just set my bases to these scripts. We gotta replace that singles so I can actually run it dynamically. This is file space base. And there we go. Everything's ready to be coded. And this is pretty simple. Oh, because we're altering the database, I'm gonna actually add my if not exists inside the dynamic code. I believe this is file groups. Oh, actually did that. Not how I was supposed to. There we go. We're gonna check for this file group. Just kind of working in patterns. And begin, end. And same thing, except for database files. And the pattern is just that. FS instead of FG. Let me go ahead and kill that. There we go. Now we should be able to call this with the same variables and it should be good. Just give it a quick read. I think I did everything correctly. So let's just cursor through. Like I said, we are going to want every database type of the database that we passed in. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that script from the last one. Just grab the database type and those values, since we already did it. Paste that there. And I'll bring this to our initialize section. I'll get that formatted. this formatted too, since these are local. And I'm going to create one more for our file. So we have types of files. And I'll just explain what those types of files are real quick, since we have to insert the values anyways. Come on. There we go. There we go. The first file is for our actual table, the clustered index, all the data in the table. So all of our reference clustered indexes will be on one file, and we're actually going to have another one for non-clustered indexes. And then we're just going to have one for large objects and column indexes. And that should be about it for our file types. So I really can't think of any other types of data that we store. I mean, we store the actual table. We store different orderings of that table. Some large objects, so it's not affecting our other indexes, our functionality, or our speed. And then a non-row based index needs to have its own file. So same thing as before. Let me get some lines here. We are going to loop through the database type. Nope. And for every database type, we're going to create those files. Nope. And just add some comments right here, because we're going to have a nested cursor for the file type. Keep wanting to add a where clause, just not thinking too far ahead, which is a good thing. So we always want to have a purpose. So scroll down. Go. Copied the line. There we go. Get this in there. All right. Did I declare my scripts? Yep. So now, same thing as last. We are going to replace all of our tokens. So just copy this. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to replace the base database name with database name, database type name, database type name, subject, with subject name, and lastly file type name with file type name. And after our tokenized script is replaced, we're just going to execute it. Boom. And let me add a comment here. But because I was consistent, I get to save a lot of time in typing just by pasting that and replacing file group with file space. So I'm gonna just read my code real quick, make sure I got everything. Actually, let me execute it. It doesn't look like there are any programmatic errors. So I have my variables, I have my if not exists for my file groups, and database files. For every database that comes in, we're going to make sure that these four, or for every database and subject, we're going to make sure that all of our files are on our database. We're just going to loop through and replace our tokenized script and run them. So it looks good. Just give it a copy, go to where I'm going to store all of my code. Just gonna modify what I already have. And I'm just gonna actually call this file because file groups and files in this system are mutually exclusive. I'm just gonna paste my code. Clean it up a little bit. And replace my parameters. Actually, I do want database on top. Just because I want to keep kind of a consistent order. Database is on top there. Just trying to normalize everything I can. So I'm gonna refresh and see if that works. Let's give the interface database some reference subjects and cross fingers. Awesome. Let's check it out. So we got our files, file groups. Naming looks right, got all 4 of them. Excellent. So, simple enough. To do this for all the databases, close all this stuff down. And open the create database script that we created in the last video. And I'm going to save as, create files, because this script is essentially going to, we're just going to come back in here and uncomment these if we ever have a specific purpose, but we want to keep this tool handy so we can quickly add files when we need them. I'm just going to replace database type with subject name because we're not going to need database type anymore, so we can remove the inner cursor. And I'm just going to paste the execute that was created in our last thing. I'm going to bring this down because that's going to be part of our cursor. And then I'm just going to place these strings with the variables and refresh. So now I know that there are going to be 2 files or 2 subjects on every single database. And those 2 subjects are reference. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. So we're going to store a lot of reference data. And the next one will be relationship. So when this is done, I'll just go ahead and type relationship and run it again. And take that time to just kind of recap. So today, we just created files for all of our databases, relatively simple, in a relatively simple way, very consistent. And this is because we are normalizing every part of our system. So we can, in this video, we are essentially normalizing storage, so we can split up our clusters and our indexes, so we won't have massive fragmentation. And there are some other physical modeling pieces inside of the tables that when we get there I'll go over. And then we're just getting set up for the next video we're going to be creating data types, but for the one after that we'll start creating tables. So we're just getting set up for that. If you think about it, it's only been about an hour and we already created 64 databases and 8 files for each of those. So we're doing pretty well. It's like what, 512 files. Awesome. And that ran. Let's grab a random database we haven't touched yet. There we go. Everything looks good. So thank you very much for watching. I hope just watching me code gave you some ideas. It just feels good to share knowledge. So the next video in this series is going to be about normalizing data, not in the third normal form type way, but actually defining data types, because we don't want to have big ints and varchars in our system like we do now. So we're going to create those, and then the next one will be about creating tables. So yeah, I will see you then, and have a good one.